So shall we, let's do the wrap up.
Let's wrap it up.
We normally have another movie we talk about, but we decided to take it easy this week.
Yes.
So I didn't watch that many movies. Should I go first? Do you want to go first? Who's going first?
You go first.
So I watched Independence Day, as I mentioned in one of the reviews, because we talked about Roland Emmerich briefly. It's fun. I inherited a surround sound system, a very, very old one from somebody, and it's fantastic. And it was really fun to watch Independence Day at home with surround sound. It's just a really, it's not like my favorite movie or anything. My favorite Stargate is still my favorite because Stargate, but everybody's in that movie for one thing. Like everybody is in Independence Day.
When you say your favorite Stargate, I think you mean your favorite Roland Emmerich film, maybe?
That is what I meant to say.
Yes.
And so it was enjoyable to watch Independence Day. And it's also just like a super solid action movie. It's well paced. The story kind of hits all its beats at a good time. I don't know, it just kind of works. You and me both watched I'm All Right, Jack, which is a 1959 movie. It's Peter Sellers.
I've almost entirely forgotten it already. Yes.
Excellent. That was one that I appreciated, and I kind of liked what it was, even though
extremely British.
As mom knows more about this because she likes a certain era of comedy, and she knows these eras better, but it's kind of it's like, what is it, post
pre Goon Squad, pre Monty Python,
right? And some of the people who not Peter Sellers, but the people in this movie I think would go on to be Goon Squad, I think. But it's just that era, and so some of the humor is enjoyable and some of it is more intellectually funny because, again, that's how British humor works for me and some people I know. But I don't know, so I enjoyed it and I appreciated it, and it was good to see another movie with Peter Sellers in it that wasn't Dr. Strangelove. So
yeah, it's a comedy about, let me just throw my 2 cents in here. I can't find anything about, it's because it's looking up Goon Squad stuff. Anyway, it's a comedy about the working class and unions and upper class twits and all of that, and it's very, very dry. And I like dry humor, but this is definitely intellectually funny, doesn't make you laugh too hard, and it was to the nth degree of it. So anyway, that's how I
yeah, I also appreciate thing. I finished The Mandalorian season 2. It took exactly a week because it's only 8 episodes and they're between 30 and 50 minutes basically. So it's pretty short. Again, I enjoy The Mandalorian. It's fun. I like a lot of people. I was also starving for some decent Star Wars content because I didn't really like anything in between the original trilogy and The Mandalorian. I mean, the newer movies are okay. Some of them, the first 2 are kind of entertaining for different reasons. I have not seen Clone Wars, the animated show, but so it was fun. It's a Western. It's, got neat things it's doing. It's got cute stuff. It's got good design. It's got great sound. It's kind of just a fun Western space Western, which is basically what Star Wars is anyways. I watched Godzilla versus Gigan. I'm not sure if I always get a little confused on how to say some of the Japanese names, but it was the next Godzilla movie. It is not as entertaining. Unfortunately, I think the last one I had seen before Godzilla versus Gigan is Godzilla versus Hedorah, which is my favorite of this section of Godzilla movies. And Gigan has a really neat design, but this movie and the plot in this movie wouldn't be bad, but there's never any character really in these movies, or at least there often is not a lot of character. And this movie and so they're more or less plot reliant on just kind of enjoying the running around and the tiny models and the silliness and seeing the monsters fight. So it's really just kind of campy monster movies. That's what Godzilla is.
right.
And this one doesn't quite have enough going on. So I was just kind of hey, look at these people. Nobody's saying anything. We're doing another scene. I don't know. things haven't changed enough. They haven't gotten wacky enough. So anyways, the Gigan design was neat, if nothing else. The last movie I have to talk about is the one I watched this morning because we didn't film and I was getting cat, was Underworld, which was pretty popular when it came out in 2003. It was one of those movies
I watched it years ago. I don't remember much. I think Kate Beckinsale stars in it. And isn't it like her husband who... It's kind of like Resident Evil that way, where it's like
yeah, well, it's Len something who's the director, but I don't know. I didn't know that part, but that rings a bell somewhere in my head. It's that kind of movie where, like, I think at the time it was kind of panned by a lot of people, but audiences liked it. Like, panned by a lot of critics, but audience liked it. And to me, it's one of those movies that's kind of average. Like, it's not terrible. It's a little stupid, and ultimately it's just overblown and kind of too serious, but it's like it's the kind of serious, but it's mixed with a level of like fantasy that doesn't quite mesh.
I definitely associate it with Resident Evil in my mind.
Yeah, Jill wants to watch Resident Evil now. But I would have to say that Underworld is not really worth a whole lot of discussion other than to say that it definitely got its design motif from The Matrix, or at least it's of that same kind of design, except that The Matrix has like these greens and browns that are interesting, and you move from different sets to different sets, whereas Underworld more or less takes place in 3 different locations, kind of, and each different set they end up on is just as kind of like dark and bright, like in various degrees as any other scene. So it's really drab looking, like there's no color to it. And I'm colorblind, so it's not like I always notice the great color design of things. Occasionally the greens and reds confuse me, but like I don't know, it's just a little too drab. So there's like neat conceptual designs, and the way that it's shot and some of the stuff they're doing is neat, even if it looks really boring. So I don't know. Also, Bill Nighy, I forget how to say his last name, is one of the guys in this. He plays Elder Vampire, and anytime he's talking, I'm like, what, Davy Jones? Oh, wrong movie. Just sounds like Davy Jones all the time. Anyways, that's what I watched.
So I didn't get too far this week myself. Obviously, I watched I'm All Right, Jack with You. Already said what I thought about that. I finished my problematic Chinese drama that I was enjoying. I think I already talked about the fashion. It's kind of interesting. I find it interesting when you have people in a culture, or at least is presented this way, regardless of what the actual culture it is, because, you know, it's not always what you see.
Right.
In these certain gender roles, and when it kind of, rather than saying we shouldn't be in these gender roles or anything like that, like it just explores being in them a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you have this young woman who like moves from a smaller town somewhere in China, I think Hunan, to Shanghai, and gets a job, and she basically gets it because she has panda blood, which is AB negative, and like the big boss's sister has AB negative, and it's a rare blood type, and so they tend to hire people with AB negative into the company just in case. And that happened, and that's how she meets the boss, and they start a relationship. And there's this interesting Cinderella motif where she's like, you know, but no one, you know, but everybody thinks I'm with him for the money, or so on. And there's a nice little speech with this woman who's like, do you think everybody just approved of Cinderella? Like, what are you asking for here? So it's kind of, and she goes through this whole thing where she's not really interested in working hard. And then she gets more interested in working hard, and like meeting him at his level, and he doesn't really care one way or the other. He just likes teasing her. Like, I think their relationship is basically that she's kind of silly and he finds that endlessly entertaining, and that is their relationship. And at the end of it, she's like, well, okay, I owned a business and I didn't really care for it. I just want to be your wife. And like, I feel like so many feminists would be like down on that. And I certainly, it's a story we've seen before, and I think that's why we get down on stories like that. But there's something different about seeing it in the modern time, where at least like she has a choice. Like she could be a businesswoman if she wanted, and she doesn't, and that's fine too. And so it's kind of interesting. The real shame of it to me, besides some of the other problematic racial stuff in it, was that it explored like that aspect of her and them in like the last 5 of 33 episodes, and it was like, I wish you'd started that like 5 episodes earlier. It's interesting. These shows sometimes, regardless of, I haven't, the Japanese dramas are shorter in general, so they don't have this issue as much, but the Korean dramas do this too. They really build things up in the first few episodes, and then they rush to the end, even though it's a 16, even though 16 episodes is a decent number of episodes, and 33 episodes certainly is. They were hour-long episodes. It wasn't 33 half-hour-long episodes. It was a 33-hour-long episode. So just kind of interesting. One of the soap opera ones, which you'd never want to watch, the soap opera ones tend to be way more conformist and conservative, in like everyone gets married and has babies kind of a way.
Marry and procreate.
Yeah, but this one, reproduce is what it actually was in the movie. I keep forgetting, but
right.
It had some interesting moments between some of the older women who'd really grown up in these restrictive times, kind of reminiscing on what it is, what being a woman is for them, you know, because they grew up in these times and it's interesting to see that rather than like something more social justicey. And I have nothing against social justicey, but it can be interesting to see.
It's a variety.
Yeah, and just people, you know, it's nice to think we can all be whoever we want to be for whatever reason. You know, I certainly believe people should be treated equally, but you know, the reality is, you know, I'm 5'2". I'm not going to be a professional basketball player, right? So like, just to see people kind of reckoning with what their lives are and how they've been. Anyway, and then I rewatched One Spring Night, which is an excellent, excellent drama that if you're in the mood for something more realistic and a little more social justicey, that's a Korean one. And he is a single dad, which apparently is like he needs to either marry a single mom or a divorced woman. Like that is who he should marry because you know, I'm reading between the lines and you don't know television versus reality, obviously, what's going on. But there seems to be a habit of kind of, if you remarry, you discard the previous children, like in one way or another. And really, they should go with their mom, but the mom's not in the picture in this case. So it's just kind of odd things happen with custody and so on. And she is not divorced and she does not have kids, but she does have a boyfriend she's not very happy with. And there's some very interesting stuff about, you know, between her and her parents and what they expect and how young Korean, the more younger Korean generation feels versus the older Korean generation, and who thinks what's right and how to deal with it and what's acceptable and what's right and so on. And it's very realistic, and it's one of the more genuine slice of life ones versus something more comedic or fantastical, or I don't think it has silly sound effects. It's not that kind of show, and that actually makes it kind of more rare.
Right.
You could enjoy it if you were in the mood for that kind of.
And I may yet. Well, and I forgot to mention that I have started watching "It's Okay to Not Be Okay," which is a Netflix original, whatever that means. It may or may not actually be produced by them. It probably wasn't. K-drama, which is very gothic and very fun.
Yeah, and that was very so far. It's very fantastical, and it's got you know, it's got bits that have stop motion animation, and bits that are, you know, so that's got a lot of that kind of stuff. Whereas One Spring Night is, what is it? It's way more cinema verite, I guess, is what I want to say. Like,
sure.
You know, so anyway, so that's fun. And now I'm rewatching some other stuff, and I don't know what I feel like watching. I need to start something new, and I don't know what I'm in the mood for. I think I might be done with problematic Chinese stuff for now. We'll see.
Cool. Well, yeah, I forgot to mention my TV stuff, but I'm still watching The Tudor over Jill's shoulder, The Tudors, which is like a proto. I think I said this last time. It's proto Game of Thrones or something. I have nothing new to report. We're on season 8 of Stargate SG-1, so we're getting there. And I watched the second episode of Dark. I'm apparently doing about an episode a week, is what I can manage from dark.
Well, then the second episode is where the guys do the thing, and
yeah,
you spend the
and
whole
it
time.
all makes sense now. Every single bit of it. So.
And most of the time, you're just like, "Wait, who is that?"
Yeah,
like the younger or the older.
God. I was explaining this to you. Okay, for about 30 seconds to a minute, I'm going to say something, and it's super spoilers for dark. There are 3 different timelines. But then there's now 2 realities, which means there's 6 different timelines across 2 different realities, except there's also a group that's even farther back in time somehow because of the event, I guess. So there's at least 7 timelines, which is like, this is like the Return of the Jedi or something. Like, there's so many things you have to follow in one movie, or Lord of the Rings, Return of the King or something. Anyways. Going forward, our next week, which is our last week of watching these, and I haven't released our last Pigeon Verite, but I'm going to get on that this week. But next week, we are watching Alien versus Predator, which is our 2000 monster movie, which was pretty famous in my youth. And I know there's lots of debates about it among geek culture. And then from 2010s, we're actually watching a movie released only 2 years ago called The Cloverfield Paradox, which I remember coming out and seeing the reviews for, so I know most of what happens with it, but I've told is a pretty entertaining bad movie, or at least some people thought it was. So that's what we're watching for the podcast. And we're also going to watch Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oh, yeah. Okay, are we going to do that? Or are we replacing what you wanted me to watch?
Yeah, we're sneaking this in here because I have a friend who watches some of these episodes. I don't know entirely what he does.
Maybe we'll watch that on Zoom together.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
And we're also watching The Man Who Fell to Earth tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, as long as Kirby is home, which I'm curious to see. It's another one of those movies that I've heard about.
You're not curious to see if Kirby is home. You're curious to see the movie.
Yes, correct. And then I don't have anything else. I mean, me and Jill are home all day. I mean, as usual, but we're also specifically,
you have to see what the cat wants to watch.
Yeah, we're specifically sort of monitoring the cat, and so we're like watching movies. And she's probably going to want me to play Smite, which is fine, but I may only be up for a couple games. I've been a little off Smite recently.
The cat is going to want you to play.
Jill is going to want me to play Smite. The other cat. But yes, I don't know. I'm going to watch stuff. Probably another Godzilla movie somewhere in there. I'm going to try and get rid of some more of the DVDs that have been sitting in a pile to be watched because I want that pile to slowly disappear. Jill wants to watch Yentl before it leaves the Criterion channel, and I've always been curious because Barbra Streisand. So that's what I got. You don't know what you're watching, so I guess that's it for us, right?
Yep, we're good.
We're good. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Have a good week. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
Watch movies. Bye.